Welcome to Social Aloe Ministries, where we are committed to glorifying God while exposing the devil. Jesus said that his sheep know his voice, and basically another they will not follow. And it sounds easy, because you may have been down that road where you did something thinking you were serving the Lord, only to find out that you'd been misled. Or maybe you thought the devil was trying to deceive you, and then you found out that it was the Lord trying to prevent you from doing something. When the Lord talks about hearing his voice, it truly comes down to having a relationship with him. Because one of the tricks of the enemy is he may use the words of the Lord, like he did in Luke 4, 1 through 13. And because you hear the words of the Lord, you're thinking it's coming from the Lord. We also have to ensure that when you hear the word of the Lord, that it comes in his voice. That's a part of how deceivers deceive, misrepresenting themselves as being messengers of God, but they're actually messengers of Satan. And the Holy Spirit plays a tremendous role in getting us to hear Jesus' voice. But it all comes down to having a relationship with the Lord. There have been so many times where people have blamed or credited the Lord for something when it was actually the works of the enemy, or they blamed or credited the enemy with something that was actually the work of the Lord. And as a part of being Holy Spirit led, and you may have been down that road where you made a mistake because you listened to the wrong voice, or maybe you just simply didn't hear the Holy Spirit of the Lord telling you to stop. Or you may have experienced resistance in other forms, and you wasn't sure if it's something where you should push through or stay back. And I recently heard a story about a lady who was pregnant during her first trimester, had morning sickness, and it was Sunday, time for church. And because she was sick, morning sickness, pregnancy go hand in hand, she started assuming that it was the devil trying to stop her from going to church. Which begs the question, what was so important in church that she couldn't stay home and basically take care of her health, to rest, allow her body to balance everything that's going on with that child that's growing within her? But she went to church sick, and then she was there glorifying God that she was able to push through. But truly, was that the godly thing to push through? So when Jesus talked about hearing his voice, he also told us something in John 16, starting verse 13. Howbeit, when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth. For he shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that he shall speak, or that shall he speak. And he will show you things to come. He shall glorify me, for he shall receive of mine, and shall show it to you, unto you. All things that the Father hath are mine. Therefore said I, that he shall take of mine, and shall show it unto you. So the Lord is letting us know about the Holy Spirit, guiding us into all truth. And there are times when we're encountering resistance, where we truly need to ask the Lord if it's of him or if it's of the devil. Because there are times when we ignore those signs, those things the Lord's trying to do to hold us back, and we end up making mistakes, some more serious than others. That's one way to learn the voice of the Lord. But experience can be a cruel teacher and may have long-lasting effects. I remember earlier this year, I had a dream, and I woke up knowing the Lord wanted me to go to Jamaica. Within 5 days, I was heading to the airport. I left the house on time, with plenty of time to check in, probably earlier than I've ever done before. Yet when I went to the airport, I was told that they had just closed check-in for luggage. And I was faced with the dilemma of me going to Jamaica without my luggage. But I felt like the Lord wanted me to go. And I let you know why, a part of why I felt like the Lord wanted me to go. And I prayed to the Lord at that moment in time. I said, Lord, I believe you want me to go to Jamaica. And since I'm going based on your directives, then I expect you to have everything to go accordingly. Because I know the devil will resist us. The devil will try to cause us to turn back when we should be going forward. And I'm not giving the devil credit in this example, but in Numbers 11, the Israelites were complaining, and they said that they wanted the leeks and onions and the fish that they had back in Egypt because they had it freely. They were being misled to go back into bondage because they're thinking about the food. They weren't thinking about, when you look in Exodus, where Lord, in Exodus 3, the Lord said he had heard the cries of the people. And that's why he sent Moses there to get them out. But when they're on their way to the promised land, and they got tired of the manna, they started talking about fish, leeks, onions. But they weren't talking about the bondage, the struggles they were enduring. And that's how the devil will resist us at times, to cause us to turn back so that we do not yield, so that we do not reap the promises of the Lord. And it takes a relationship with the Lord to determine whether we're going to go forth or turn back. And I mentioned about the dream that I had. And one of the ways the Lord will confirm his word is based on scriptures. Like I said, there's a difference between hearing the word of the Lord and hearing his voice. And by that, the Bible has the words of the Lord, but you also have to hear it in his voice. And some things have to make sense contextually. So part of the reason why I knew that the Lord wanted me to go to Jamaica, based on a dream, is in Acts 16. Verses 9 through 10. And a vision appeared to Paul in the night. There stood a man of Macedonia and prayed to him, saying, Come over into Macedonia and help us. And after he had seen the vision, immediately we endeavored to go into Macedonia, assuredly gathering that the Lord had called us to preach the gospel unto them. The dream that I had about going to Jamaica, it wasn't as clear. I had to discern. And it's part of hearing the Lord's voice. Because some things won't always be this clear, but you have to discern when the Lord is communicating something to you. And that's what I discerned from a dream. When it's Jamaica, my luggage actually arrived same time that I did. And when I went to Jamaica, some things happened, and it was confirmation that the Lord wanted me there. And it also let me know why the devil was trying to stop me. And not to say that the devil knew exactly what the Lord had planned for me to do in Jamaica. But the devil knew that if the Lord was sending me there, it wasn't simply for a vacation. And he was trying to stop me. So at that point in time, I had to push through. But there are times when the resistance gets even stronger. And if you give up, the devil will prevail. In 1 Thessalonians 2, verses 17 through 18, the Apostle Paul wrote, But we, brethren, being taken from you for a short time in presence, not in heart, endeavored the more abundantly to see your face with great desire. Wherefore, we would have come to you, even I, Paul, once and again, but Satan hindered us. But Satan hindered us. I won't say that's necessarily a bad thing, because, for example, in Job chapters 1 and 2, we see how the Lord used the devil to put Job to the test. So even though Satan hindered them, it could have been a good thing. The Lord may have simply allowed it for a reason that is not explained. But still, there are times when his resistance is to cause you to turn back. But you have to keep on pushing through. And a lot of times you may experience naysayers. In modern terms, we call them haters. And those individuals are messengers of Satan. A lot of times you have to ignore those individuals because it is the Holy Spirit who guides us into all truth. People will lie, but the Holy Spirit does not. In Zechariah 3, verses 1 through 2, we see another example of that resistance. And he showed me Joshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to resist him. So the devil, he's always resisting God. The devil's messengers, they're always resisting the things of God. And also in the book of Acts, when the Apostle Paul encountered a sorcerer, a false prophet named Elmira or Bar Jesus, he said that he was perverting the things of the Lord. And because of that, he was cursed with blindness. When you're doing your godly assignments, you can expect ungodly people to come along. Some of whom will come along like they're fellow messengers of God, but they're there to derail you. And we see an example of this in 1 Kings 13, where the Lord sent a prophet from Judah to prophesy in Bethel. But when he went to Bethel, there was an older prophet there. At least it was after the Judean prophet had prophesied. But the prophet from Bethel lured that prophet back to his house, which was a violation of what the Lord had told the prophet from Judah. And as a result, that prophet from Judah died because the prophet from Bethel lied to him and caused him to disobey the Lord. So again, it requires a relationship with the Lord to know when his Holy Spirit is guiding you. And yes, there are some lessons you're going to have to learn along the way. Also, we see in Daniel. In Daniel chapter 10, Daniel had inquired of the Lord, and he even fasted for 3 weeks. And some of you have been through that, where maybe you were fasting for your breakthrough, and maybe the breakthrough came, maybe it didn't. Some people even call it the Daniel fast. So after 3 weeks of fasting, in Daniel 10, starting in verse 12, then said he unto me, an angel that is, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand, and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. For the prince of the kingdom of Persia, which is an evil principality. So, but the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. So the prince of Persia withstood the angel for 21 days. So it caused a 21-day delay in Daniel receiving that message. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. So Daniel inquired of the Lord, fasted for 21 days, probably wondering if the Lord had heard him, but the Lord actually heard him the same day, the first day, sent a messenger angel to him, The angel was in a battle with a principality, and the archangel Michael came to help. And that provided the breakthrough. If you know the Lord has promised you something, keep on waiting. When I mentioned about deception, because there are people, and I actually went down that road myself, where the devil, he set up a plan, and I was deceived for more than 2 years where I was waiting for something. And at the end of that wait, I realized that it was the devil setting me up to delay my destiny. And then after that, he laid another trap for me. That may have caused a 1-year delay in my destiny. Have to be very careful. Have to be very careful. So again, if you know the Lord has promised you something, then he will fulfill it. If he sets a date for the fulfillment of the promise, it will come to pass. And we see an example of this in Genesis 18. The Lord had told Abraham and Sarah that he was going to bless him with a child, basically within a year. So basically within a 3-month window, he expected Sarah to get pregnant. But King Abimelech of Gerar had taken Sarah to be in his harem. That caused problems. But the Lord appeared or spoke to the king in a dream and let him know that he's basically a dead man if he did not return his prophet's wife. And a part of that serious threat from the Lord, that serious promise from the Lord, was because the Lord had made a promise and he was going to fulfill it, and he was not going to allow that king to get in the way of the promise. In addition, the Lord prevented King Abimelech from touching Sarah, which was very important. The Lord had promised them a child. Abraham was going to be the father, the biological father. Sarah was going to be the biological mother. No one was going to get in the way of that. We also see an example of how in Genesis 24, Abraham sent his servant to get a wife for Isaac. And he said that the Lord was going to send an angel ahead of him to ensure success. And he was successful. Same when the Israelites were leaving Egypt. The angel of the Lord led the way. A pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night to pave the way. So again, if the Lord promises you something, it will come to pass. If the devil promises you something, more than likely it won't come to pass, and it will just cause delays. Sometimes you should be looking to the left, the devil gets you to look to the right, and you may end up missing opportunities. So it's very important when it comes to resistance for you to have the relationship with the Lord, to discern whether the resistance is coming from him or the devil. When I mentioned about the Lord will prevail, he is the sovereign God. In Acts 5, the apostles had been accosted for preaching the gospel. The holy men of the time, who were supposed to be representatives of God, they were trying to stop the apostles from preaching the gospel. So even though they seemed as if they were messengers of God, those holy men at the time, they ended up becoming messengers of Satan because they were trying to stop the apostles from preaching the gospel. But during their mini trial, so to speak, Gamaliel, a Pharisee, said the following to them in Acts 5, verses 38 through 39. And now I say unto you, refrain from these men, and let them alone. For if this counsel or this work be of men, it will come to naught. But if it be of God, ye cannot overthrow it. But if it be of God, ye cannot overthrow it. Lest haply ye be found even to fight against God. We see back in the book of Genesis how Jacob wrestled with the angel of the Lord all night. And it talks about, and Jacob was renamed Israel because he wrestled with God and prevailed. He didn't really prevail, because if you read the story, you see that the angel simply touched Jacob in his basically hip socket and dislocated the joint. So he wrestled with God, but just one touch, that kind of brought things to an end. But one of the things is, Jacob would not let go until the Lord blessed him. And if the Lord promises you something, do not let go until the Lord blesses you. But also have to put this caution in there. If you believe you're waiting on something from the Lord, and that thing actually came from the devil, no matter what you do, it won't come to pass. It's going to fail. And you have to realize when something's from the devil and you need to turn away. If not, you could be waiting forever for something that won't come to pass. When I mentioned about prevailing, I'll leave with what Jeremiah said in Jeremiah 20, where he said, "Thou art stronger than I, and hast prevailed." Talking about the Lord. When the Lord plans and ordains something, when the Lord plans and ordains something, it will come to pass. And more importantly, He will bring it to pass. So if you feel as if you're waiting on a promise and you're working to bring it to pass, that is a sign that either your heart has deceived you, in fact, in Jeremiah 17:9, the Lord said, "The heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" So there are times, when I mentioned before, that we may blame the Lord or devil for certain things. Well, there's also the other part, where sometimes we deceive ourselves. So it's very important to have the relationship with the Lord, to know whether a struggle is something that you need to push through, or if it's something that you need to stop. Inquire for the Lord to find out what He wants you to do. It may break your heart, but the Lord's going to tell you the truth. And He may let you know that what you've been pursuing was not of and from Him. If you want to continue, then you do so at your own peril. One of the most challenging, one of the most challenging yet most rewarding thing about being a Christian is to be led by the Holy Spirit. Is to be led by the Holy Spirit. Yes, there are times when He may lead you into the fire, so to speak. Because in Luke 4 verse 1, we see there was the Holy Spirit who led Jesus into the wilderness, where He was tempted by the devil, or the devil tried, but didn't prevail. When the Holy Spirit leads you somewhere, He'll be there with you. And even though He's always with you, there's a difference between fighting a battle that the Lord sends you into and one that He did not send you into. David, he slew Goliath because the Lord was with him. If the Lord wasn't with him, David would have gotten crushed. Which brings me to possibly my final point. Some people refuse to give up on certain things because of pride. I mentioned about the heart being deceitful. We all have to choose our battles wisely. We all have to be led by the Holy Spirit. If the Holy Spirit is telling us stop, but our pride is telling us that we want to be right and try to prove God wrong, that is not going to go well. Let the Holy Spirit lead you. He will guide you into all truth. He will glorify Jesus. And at times, he will show you things to come. May the Lord guide and keep you. God bless you.